those who don't know me. I was asked by Brian to share with you this morning for approximately 10 minutes about our China trip in July 2012 for some of the details or facts and also my personal experience. Before I share, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank each one of you for your prayer and your sacrificial financial support. While we were on the missions, I felt your prayers. They were truly a daily encouragement. We wouldn't have had such a blessed trip without the full support of your prayers. So I deeply appreciate all of you. About a month ago, a team of 9 of us partnered with the worldwide Share World organization as short-term missionaries to minister to 800 plus high school students in Duan Village, Guangxi province in China. There were over 150 teachers serving in 2 high schools at Yaozhong and Dugao. Teachers were from Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Hong Kong, Macau, China, and United States. The 9 of us, including Roger, Julie Chen, Karina, Brianna's not here, Caitlin's not here, Jordan, Bethany, and I served at Yaozhong High School. Jordan, another young Australian college student, and I teamed up together to teach a group of 21 students. We all had the same goal to help the student to better their English, and ultimately we wanted to tell them about Jesus Christ. The teaching program itself was very intense, busy but fun. From Monday through Friday, all teaching staff gathered together for the morning worship service at 7 till roughly 7:30 before our breakfast. We then tried to catch the buses or the 3-wheel vehicle, which they call tuk-tuks, and took us to the designated school by 8. We then went through our daily program and didn't return back to the hotel rooms until 9 p.m. Although we had about 2 hours off during the afternoon from 1 to 3, we spent those 2 hours doing our personal errands such as dropping off, picking up laundries, photos, meetings for preparing another lessons or more lessons, or like shopping in nearby stores for supplies that we needed for the classes. So we practically don't really have or didn't have any free time on our own. While we arrived at Yaozhong High School, we had the morning assembly as a whole for students and teachers. We taught students to sing together songs such as "This is the Day," "Come Along with Me," and "I Have the Joy, Joy, Joy," before we separated into multimedia room for the multimedia presentation for about 40 minutes. After that, we went back to our individual classes for the morning lessons till noon. In the late afternoon from 3:30 to 5:30, we met in the classroom, which we had option to finish up lessons which we didn't finish in the morning, to have a Q&A session, to play games, to learn to weave a basket, or to design, paint, and prepare a banner which represents the designated country at the finale of the Olympic Games. In the Q&A session, we shared some of the testimony to students. When they heard about Jesus the first time, a couple of them came to me afterward and asked more about Jesus. Unfortunately, I was new, and getting accustomed to the tight and busy schedule, which resulted in a time shortage for discussing Jesus more in depth with each one of them. But if I ever have a chance to go back, maybe by experience, I have a better sense of how to manipulate the time and schedule to work on it more effectively. In the evening, we have movie night, boys and girls talk, and outdoor activities. The main theme for the 2012 English camp was Olympic. The daily meeting in the multimedia presentation was teaching students about the life of 8. So you're wondering what that is all about. The life of 8, it translates to 8 categories, and 1 teachable to admit I need help. 2, honest in motives to admit when I am distressed, not hold a cold face. 3, honest in words and actions, relax in who I am, be truthful about oneself. 4, righteous, hungry and thirsty to do what is right and have integrity. 5, forgiving, be compassionate and caring for others. 6, pure thinking, do not dilute your pure thoughts by an unwholesome talk. 7, peacemaking, learn to deal with anger and disunity. And the last one, courageous. Stand alone for what is right. Continue to live a life of faith even when those around you are not. All these 8 categories also tie into our daily lessons. The students have a hunger to learn and they are very talented. If you give them a task, they can easily come up with creative ideas and they can complete the task on a very tight schedule. I was very impressed by their team spirit. Throughout the entire trip, I have learned many, many lessons and was truly a blessing. Before my trip, I was a bit skeptical due to the hiccup with my visa application in the China consular office. My visa was rejected by a consul at first, but eventually received approval by another consul after many, many prayers from our church family, so I thank you. My lack of prayer was my oversight. I thought, well, applying for a visa is the easiest task, and I didn't need to pray before I submitting it. No, I was wrong. God is good and merciful. He is indeed teaching me that in all things, big or small, I need to present them to Him and seek for His guidance. Trusting in the Lord with all things, regardless of how my trip was going, was another lesson for me. I got laryngitis the second day I was in Hong Kong. I wasn't extremely sick, but I wasn't 100% well. I kept asking God, oh Lord, how are you going to use me if I can't even use my voice? It was amazing how the Lord confirmed to me that He is in full control of my life. His promise to me is that I am faithful. He Himself is going before me and leading me. He will never leave me nor forsake me. On Monday morning, the first day of school, my voice suddenly came back, and I was able to teach the class in spite of my bad cough. God is really awesome. I knew and I felt all my fellow supporters' constant prayers to support me and uplift me. Again, thank you. Another lesson was be kind and compassionate to one another. I thought that working with someone who was much younger and fun-loving was going to be difficult, but it was actually a compliment to my style and really rounded out my team. It took some time to adjust, but I realized God surely molded us together to love one another and to work with one another in unity because we are God's ambassadors. I also recall that we were told to be flexible. There is no right or wrong way to teach as long as we all have the same focus in the Lord. So on the second to last day, the whole class had written up their affirmations for the program. I was so touched to read some of the things that students wrote to me in both English but mostly Chinese. They all enjoyed themselves during the English camp. They were so glad to meet us. They learned a lot and were motivated by us. They wished that we didn't have to leave. They hoped that we would return next year, and for certain, they would be looking forward to meeting us again. Some of them even wrote down that they truly felt God's love in us, and they want to continue to be blessed by the Lord. By the way, I've been receiving many emails from some of the students after we came back. Well, needless to say, there is a great need in China. Children are longing for love, especially God's love, friendship, and family. It is sad to say that they all have family, but they only see their family members like maybe a couple times a year during Chinese New Year and summer break, because their family lives so far away from the boarding school. It is truly a blessing to serve the children, and for me, I have to say it is a life-changing experience during those couple of weeks. Now that when I read Proverbs 3, 5, and 6, I really understand what it says in there. These are my prayer requests that, as a closing. Well, pray for the safety of those students. They were told by their school officials that they should not listen and believe us foreign teachers. All the handouts we gave them will be confiscated after the camp. Pray for those who have heard the gospel message. Pray that the seed has been planted in their hearts and the Lord will make it grow. Pray that the student will improve their English comprehension skills so that they can apply for universities. This is one of their highest hopes. Pray for the heart of the school officials that they find the urgency to know the Lord for themselves. And pray for more people will go to global missions. And so this is all I have to share, and I thank the Lord for the opportunity to serve in China alongside with you as my co-teammates. Thank you.
It's not in the U.S. and I'm sure it'll be different, and I'm sure I'll have a great experience and learn many new things. But during the course of 2 weeks, I learned so much more than I expected. I was especially humbled through seeing the environment of the local Chinese villagers and the students, and I was also amazed of how God can work in so many of the people's lives and in so bold ways, because there were many stories from the local villagers of how God showed himself through the illnesses and the loss of family members and in other ways. Living in a very, advanced and developed country, it's kind of hard to see how God can work so amazingly in our everyday lives. But yet in less developed countries, God's work is shown in so much bolder way. I definitely learned a lot in these 2 weeks, seeing how God's love can change so many people's lives, and including the villagers and the students. I was also blessed to see how much I also have back here at home. Like when you go there, and I was able to establish friendships with my students, and I was even able to see their dorms and where they lived during the school year. And when I went in and I saw that they slept on on boards, just wooden boards, and that was it. I was pretty much shocked. I was thinking, oh my, back at home I have a fluffy mattress and everything, and I'm complaining about the hotel. That was probably the one thing I complained about when I got there. I sent an email back to my mom, and I was like, the beds are so hard and firm, it hurts my back. But then I saw what the students were sleeping, and I was like, I should not even be complaining. What I have compared to them already is a lot. And seeing the innocence and the simple life of the students also humbled me. Since they live almost year-round at their school, their daily routine is pretty much all they live. That's all they do. They just go to school, they have their meals, they do their homework, and then they sleep, and that's it. And I was thinking, wow, I have a lot, and my life compared to theirs, I should be really grateful, yet I'm always complaining. I shouldn't be complaining when I look at how they live and what they have compared to me. I was even humbled more on our Saturday excursion. So on our Saturday excursion, we were allowed, the group of teachers who went, we rode up on a bus and we went up the mountains to literally a village. It was the houses there were built of, stone and wood. There's 2 levels. The bottom one was for their animals, their horses and their chickens or whatever. And then their top level was for them. Their floor was literally just planks of wood just stacked together to make a floor, supported with poles. And their kitchen was just a fireplace. So it's kind of thinking 18th century style. It's like a fireplace and a plastic table and a dirt floor. And seeing that, I was just like, wow, this really does still exist. Like, in the US, you don't really see that anymore. You see like homes with insulated walls, carpets on your floor, like a really nice kitchen and stuff. And a family with 8 would live in that small little house. And just seeing the family's house and just how they live and how they go through their daily life allowed me to realize that, you know, how I should also be grateful, even more grateful than how I am or how I'm supposed to be. Besides being humbled during these 2 weeks, I was also blessed to share the love of God with my students. I think sharing the love of God and just showing them that someone loves them was my classroom's biggest focus and our biggest goal or objective. We went and we kind of knew that we couldn't share the gospel just up front in class and everything, so instead we tried to direct what we shared with them as the love of God, because since they don't go home very often, they don't really know what family love is or parental love. Instead, they, I guess, they define love as what movies define it as, or in their different relationships. And so, my 2 other co-teachers and I, throughout the 2 weeks, at night or in the evening, we would often tell them stories about our own lives and how God's love has changed us. And I also shared with them, like, since I'm adopted, so I shared with them the story of why. Because they kept asking me, oh, why are you adopted? Why would your parents adopt you? And I would say, well, it's because of love, and that love can be paralleled with God's love for us, since after we receive Him, we can be part of His family and be His adopted children. And at first, I thought I'd just tell them just because they're curious. But at the end of the 2 weeks, I could see that what I told them in the first week, it really sunk into their hearts, and they really thought about it. And on our very last day of our classroom time, we asked our students if they also wanted to receive this love that could be given to them. And 7 of my 19 students said yes, they wanted to receive Jesus as their personal Lord and Savior, so that they can also experience this unconditional love that He can give us. And I think that was my biggest blessing, is just seeing that in 2 weeks He can transform the lives of some students. And even those who didn't receive the Lord at that moment, I'm sure they still think about it because it's such a mind-blowing concept to them. And so my prayer is that they'll continue to think about it, and one day we'll see them in heaven again. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bethany. When we returned from the missions trip, the one question that everyone asked was, how was China? And this is a really simple and straightforward question, but I struggle to answer it. I would often just say, it's amazing, because I couldn't, in just a few words, tell of the experience where the Lord taught me so much on, or describe the trip that left me wide-eyed in what I saw, or even just share of the missions field that I loved and that I can't wait to go back to again. It was simply amazing. One of the main things that God taught me was that He has a plan. I might not know, understand, or even like His plan, but He has one that's far greater than I could ever imagine. I first learned this when we arrived in China, and I found my luggage to be missing. Before leaving America, just hours before, I was frantically trying to get all my last-minute preparations in and cut everything out for my lessons. I like being organized and in control and knowing exactly what's going to happen. So because I was so busy from ending school and starting all my summer activities, I didn't get that chance to plan like I wanted to. So I was so stressed out hours before, and my mom came up to me and she said, Bethany, you need to stop. You've done your part in the planning. Trust that God will do the rest. And that was kind of like an oh mom moment, but I stopped. But it left me really unsettled because I knew I could have planned so much more. But in China, none of that really mattered because it was all lost. All my organization, it was pretty much useless. But God had a plan, and His plan was to strip me of everything I depended on, everything that made me feel secure, so I would lean on Him. He was saying exactly what my mom said. why are you depending so much on these material things when you have me to carry you through? And while I would have loved it if God had a less extreme plan for me to find that I needed to trust Him, me losing my luggage brought me back to Him, and it also showed me of the love of other believers. It was kind of overwhelming when people I didn't even know came up to me saying they were praying for me. And when I heard back here that you guys in my church family were praying, I was just so blessed and thankful. So thank you so much for covering me in your prayers. One other way that I learned that God has a plan was when I questioned it. And it was the first day of school, and I was walking to class when this girl came up to me, and she offered to hold my bag. So I turned to her and I asked, "Hey, what's your name?" And she looks at me really confused, and she just starts nodding. She's like, "Yes, yes." So I'm thinking, oh, okay, maybe she doesn't understand. I'll try another question. So I asked, "Hey, how old are you?" And she gives me the same look and says, "Yes, yes." And right then I thought, God, what are you doing sending me, a Chinese girl who knows absolutely no Chinese, to teach these kids and share your word with them? But on the last day, I was sitting with 4 of my girls, and they had seen the Jesus movie. We had shared some stories with them throughout the course of the 2 weeks, and now I really wanted to share the gospel with them. So with very simple words and drawings, I told them how much God loved them, that He sent His only Son to die on the cross for them. And I wasn't really sure if they understood, because they don't understand when I ask what their favorite game is, so how could they understand what Jesus did for them? But I asked my girls to tell the group sitting next to us what I just shared with them. I asked them if they could explain it. And one of my girls, Megan, she turns to that group and she excitedly says something to them. And I asked the teacher of that group, did she say it right? Did she explain and understand everything? And I was just overwhelmed with excitement and joy when she said yes. God planned to have the gospel shared to those girls, and He chose me, someone who could barely even hold a conversation with them, to share His love with them. But His plan, it didn't stop there, because even when I came back to the States, my kids are still talking with me, and while we're practicing the English we taught them, I've been encouraging them to go to the book cafe, a place where they can check out Bibles, and they don't have to return them. And just a couple weeks ago, one of my boys, Max, he emails me and he says, "Today I read the Bible." So those 5 words they made my day. And I asked him what he's reading, and he replies with, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." And just a few days ago, he told me that he enjoys reading the Bible. I am overjoyed that I'm part of God's plan to reach out to those that are in need of Him, and to reach out to those who are thirsting for Him, even in a country that restricts Christianity. So when I'm asked the question, "How was China?" I answer with, "It was amazing," because once you get me started, I can't stop talking about the trip I absolutely love. So thank you so much for all your parents' support that sent the gospel to China and helped me experience such a life-changing trip.
Hi, I'm Jordan, and I want to thank you all for supporting me as we all went to China. I saw God working in this trip even before we left for China. One of the things that was holding me back from going on this trip before was the money. We needed about $4,000, most of which was to help pay for the students to go to this camp. And I wasn't sure where the money would come from. But by giving it over to God, He showed His love for me, that He wanted me to go on this trip, and He provided way more than enough money for me to go on this trip. This trip was a huge blessing for me, from admiring Hong Kong, experiencing China for the first time, to forming a bond with the 21 students in my class. Not only did I form friendships with my students, I also formed friendships with fellow teachers from the other countries. that we stayed together for 2 weeks, and we did activities and bonded together, and just seeing the body of God just work, that we all were really compatible with each other, that we really got along, and even now we still communicate with each other, saying how much we miss each other, how great this trip was for us. My class was comprised of 16 girls and 5 boys from ages 16 to 18. And in the beginning, my living Mandarin was not enough to communicate with them. And so for the first couple of days, I was really discouraged, just wondering how am I going to communicate with the students. And it's just talking with some of the older members from the team and other team members. I just gave it to God. I just said that it's only the first couple of days, and I just know that you will find a way to help me communicate with my students. And that first week, my students really surprised me. They tried to, as much English as they could. They used a dictionary to look up the Chinese English dictionary, just to look up what words they wanted to tell me. Or they got a notebook and they wrote broken English on there, and they drew pictures for me. And with that communication, I was able to answer some of the questions about God and love and what love is. And during those 2 weeks, my co-teacher Julie and I and another one of our teachers, we just had a great time just getting to know our students. We did activities, we played games, we had water fights, we talked, and we sang songs. My students were singers, and they loved singing. And most of all, we got to share the gospel. One of the days we had a question and answer session where they wrote questions to us, and we answered it. And so 2 of the questions that really helped us share the gospel was, one of the students wrote, "Why do you love God so much? And how do we show love to others?" And so we started sharing our testimonies and how God worked in our lives. And after that, I got to share the gospel through the Bridge to Life. And just connecting back to what true joy is, that joy is an acronym is Jesus and others and then yourself. That you have to love Jesus first in order to have true joy. And then after that, at the end of this trip, just that last day when we said goodbye, and they were really sad. They were all crying, and they all hugged us, and we had group hugs, and we formed a bond with them for 2 weeks. We got really close, and then when we leave, it's that bond just tears away. Our heart gets ripped apart, and it was just really hard. And we were leaving on the bus from school, and the students ran out from the school and surrounded the bus, and people tried to cling to the bus and didn't want to get off. And they're all chanting their theme, their country's cheers. And at the end of this, none of my students officially came to Christ. And at first, I was really discouraged that, and even after hearing the wonderful stories from my other team members of how their students came to Christ, and how one teacher had all the students all wanted to come and accept Christ, and most of them did. And just hearing my other team members here, there's wonderful stories of their students coming to Christ and really seeing their excitement and their joy. But just sitting in my hotel room, I looked up 1 Corinthians 3:6-7. It says, "I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters anything, but only God who gives the growth." And it just affected me that I planted the seed. I got my part done, and someone else would come along and water it, and they will encourage them. But it's only God who can change their hearts. And so I held on to this comfort that in China, maybe God will affect someone there to help them. And in the meantime, I've been keeping contact with a couple of my students and just emailing back and forth with them, seeing how they're doing, getting happy Valentines from them from China. This was Valentine's Day recently over there. And just praying for them that God will change their hearts. So thank you.